Welcome to Deep Dive America. Right now, the US dollar is at a crossroads. One wrong move and its 80-year reign could crumble. And Donald Trump's radical tariff plan? It's either a genius rescue mission or a catastrophic blunder. Back in 2018, his trade wars sent shockwaves through the global economy. But this time, the risks are even higher. Economists warn these tariffs could send prices soaring, crush American consumers, and push rivals like China and Russia to abandon the dollar entirely. Yet Trump's team insists it's the only way to bring manufacturing back and break Beijing's stranglehold on trade. But here's what they're not telling you. This isn't just about economics. It's about power, control, and possibly a last-ditch effort to delay the dollar's collapse. So is this a masterstroke or a ticking time bomb? Let's uncover the truth. The US dollar has dominated the global economy since the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement, when world leaders cemented its status as the reserve currency, backed by gold and later by the sheer might of the American economy. For decades, this gave the US unrivaled power. Countries needed dollars for trade, central banks hoarded them for stability, and oil, the lifeblood of the global economy, was sold exclusively in dollars, creating the petrodollar system that recycled wealth back to America. But now that dominance is unraveling. At home, reckless fiscal policies have led to runaway inflation, eating away at the dollar's purchasing power, while political gridlock over the debt ceiling has exposed the fragility of America's financial system. The national debt has ballooned to over $34 trillion, raising fears that the US is monetizing its deficits, effectively printing money to cover its bills, a move that could trigger a collapse in global confidence. Meanwhile, abroad, geopolitical rivals like China and Russia are mounting a coordinated assault on dollar hegemony. Beijing is pushing the yuan in international trade, signing oil deals in yuan with Saudi Arabia and Russia, while also building a digital currency system to bypass Western financial networks entirely. The BRICS alliance, now expanded to include economic heavyweights like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the UAE, is developing alternative payment systems to dethrone the dollar, while gold purchases by central banks suggest a growing flight from dollar reserves. Even America's allies like France are settling trades in yuan, signaling that the world is preparing for a post-dollar era. For ordinary Americans, the consequences are already here. Inflation has driven up the cost of living, wages haven't kept pace, and families feel their savings shrinking as the dollar's value weakens. The Federal Reserve's aggressive rate hikes have only papered over the cracks, without solving the deeper problem. The global financial system is shifting, and America's economic leverage is slipping away. This is where Trump's tariff strategy comes into play, a high-stakes gamble to force the world back into dollar dependency. By slapping heavy tariffs on imports, he aims to reshore manufacturing, punish countries that sideline the dollar, and make US goods more competitive. But critics warn this could backfire, accelerating de-dollarization as nations like China retaliate with their own trade barriers, pushing more commerce into yuan, rubles, or even a new BRICS currency. The petrodollar, once an unshakable pillar of US power, is now in jeopardy as oil-producing nations explore non-dollar transactions. If that system collapses, the dollar could lose its last anchor, triggering hyperinflation, a bond market crisis, or even a run on the currency. The stakes couldn't be higher. We're not just talking about trade imbalances or political posturing, but the very foundation of American prosperity. The question isn't whether the dollar's dominance will fade, but how fast, and whether America can adapt before it's too late. When Trump talks tariffs, he's not just discussing trade policy, he's declaring economic warfare, using import taxes as strategic weapons to force the world to bend to America's will. His aggressive tariff strategy targets China, Mexico, and even traditional allies, imposing steep taxes on their exports unless they comply with strict America-first trade rules. On the surface, the plan seems straightforward. By making foreign goods more expensive, Trump aims to revive U.S. manufacturing, bring jobs back home, and shrink America's massive trade deficit, which he believes will ultimately strengthen the dollar's global dominance. But there's a much bigger game being played here. Trump views tariffs not just as economic tools, but as instruments of geopolitical power, designed to weaken competitors and force trading partners to rely more on the U.S. economy, thereby reinforcing the dollar's supremacy in international trade. Critics dismiss this approach as outdated mercantilism, a throwback to protectionist policies that could spark trade wars, raise consumer prices, and isolate America economically. Yet Trump frames it as an existential necessity, a defensive strike against countries that have allegedly exploited weak U.S. trade policies for decades. The real question isn't just whether these tariffs will boost American industry or hurt consumers. It's whether they'll actually give the U.S. more leverage in a world where the dollar's dominance is under siege. Is this a masterstroke to reclaim American economic power, or just political theater that risks accelerating the very decline it seeks to prevent? The answer could determine whether the dollar remains the world's reserve currency, or whether America's economic supremacy becomes a relic of the past. The debate over Trump's tariff strategy has split economists and policymakers into warring camps, each armed with starkly different visions of America's economic future. On one side, supporters champion tariffs as a necessary shield for critical industries like steel and semiconductors, arguing that these targeted trade barriers can slash the U.S. trade deficit while forcing China and other competitors to stop dumping cheap goods in American markets. They see this aggressive approach as the only way to rebuild America's industrial backbone and maintain dollar supremacy in an increasingly hostile global economy. But opponents fire back with dire warnings. These same tariffs function as hidden taxes on American consumers, driving up prices for everything from electronics to automobiles, while inviting devastating retaliation from trading partners. The numbers reveal a dangerous tightrope walk. While some protected industries have seen temporary boosts, the broader economic impact shows rising consumer costs and supply chain chaos that could ultimately backfire. Even more alarming is the long-game risk. By triggering trade wars and pushing allies toward alternative financial systems, these policies might actually accelerate the dollar's decline as the world's reserve currency. The data so far paints a murky picture. Short-term gains for specific sectors, but troubling signs of inflation and reduced competitiveness in others. Yet beyond the spreadsheets lies the real stakes. This isn't just about quarterly GDP numbers, but about whether America will dictate the rules of global commerce in the 21st century or find itself sidelined in a financial world that's rapidly de-dollarizing. As the battle rages between protectionists and free traders, one truth becomes undeniable. The gamble is enormous, the outcomes uncertain, and the consequences, for American workers, consumers, and the dollar's global standing, could reshape the economic order for generations. Let's cut through the noise. Because Trump's tariff play isn't just about economics, it's about rewriting the rules of global power. While the surface debate focuses on trade deficits and manufacturing jobs, geopolitical strategists see a far more calculated agenda at work. A deliberate retreat from globalization designed to force the world back into America's economic orbit. By weaponizing trade, Trump isn't just protecting industries. He's systematically dismantling decades of supply chain interdependence, pressuring nations to choose between access to U.S. markets or alignment with China. But there's another layer here: pure political theater. These tariffs electrify Trump's base with red meat rhetoric about winning against foreign competitors, while conveniently diverting attention from domestic vulnerabilities like inflation or infrastructure decay. And then there's the real endgame: crippling China's ascent. Every tariff on semiconductors or electric vehicles isn't just an import tax. It's a chokehold on Beijing's tech ambitions, a way to starve Chinese firms of both American consumers and cutting-edge innovation. This is where the economic facade falls away. What looks like trade policy is actually a high-stakes geopolitical siege, with Trump using tariffs like a battering ram against multipolar world order. The collateral damage? Global supply chains are fracturing, allies are growing wary, and the dollar's dominance faces new threats as nations scramble for alternatives. But for Trump's team, that's not a bug. It's the feature. They're betting that short-term chaos will lead to long-term American supremacy, where countries either play by Washington's rules or get locked out of the financial system altogether. The question isn't whether these tariffs will reshape trade, it's whether America can survive the earthquake it's triggering in the global economy. This is the doomsday scenario nobody wants to face. Trump's tariff strategy exploding into a full-scale economic disaster. First comes the trade war spiral. China slaps retaliatory tariffs, EU follows suit, and suddenly everyday goods from electronics to cars get 20 to 30% more expensive overnight. Inflation rockets as supply chains fracture, squeezing American wallets dry. Then the real collapse begins. Nations fleeing the dollar, oil deals in yuan and euros, treasury bonds dumped en masse. Within months, the unthinkable happens. The dollar loses its crown, America can't fund its deficits, and interest rates skyrocket. Geopolitical chaos follows. Allies hedge their bets with Beijing, sanctions lose their bite, and U.S. influence evaporates overnight. This isn't just policy failure, it's the irreversible unraveling of American dominance. No second chances, no recovery, just a new world order where America plays by someone else's rules. The stakes, everything. So, is Trump's tariff gamble America's economic salvation or its suicide note? The answer lies in the chaos of global markets and the ruthless calculus of geopolitical power, where every retaliatory tariff could spark inflation, every de-dollarization move could weaken U.S. dominance, and every supply chain shock could rewrite the rules of global trade. Supporters see it as the ultimate power play to force the world back under dollar hegemony, while critics warn it's lighting the fuse on an economic doomsday device that could detonate America's financial supremacy. One undeniable truth remains. This battle for the dollar's future will reshape your paycheck, your grocery bill, and America's place in the world order. The final verdict? History will decide whether today's tariffs become tomorrow's triumph or tragedy. But right now, the stakes have never been higher. Don't just watch this revolution unfold from the sidelines. Hit like if you believe in dollar dominance. Subscribe to stay ahead of the financial warfare they're not talking about on mainstream news. And drop your take in the comments. Are tariffs America's economic armor or its Achilles heel? This is Deep Dive America signing off. Stay sharp because the next economic earthquake could hit sooner than you think.